controversial, locally executed political prisoner is suddenly alive.
Right.
And you aren't trying to do this in some distant, uneducated province where rumors are hard to verify. You are attempting to spark this movement in the exact same city where he was publicly tortured and killed just weeks prior.
Yeah, the geography alone is wild.
I mean, the authorities who ordered his death are still in power. The executioners are still on duty. The grave where he was buried is literally a short walk away.
It's an easily falsifiable claim.
Exactly. To make a claim like that in a geographic location where your facts can be instantly checked is an incredibly dangerous starting point for a historical movement.
The physical reality, the geography, and the political power structures are all, sitting right there to instantly crush the movement.
Okay, let's unpack this. That unbelievable tension making an impossible claim in the very place where anyone could supposedly prove it wrong. That is the starting point for our deep dive today. So welcome.
Thanks for having me.
We are taking you on a purely analytical, historical journey into what is undoubtedly one of the most debated claims in human history, the resurrection of Jesus of Nazareth.
But before we really dig into the timeline, we have to set some firm ground rules.
Good idea.
Our mission today is not theological. We are wearing our historian hats. We are going to look at the historical arguments, the cultural context of the first century, and the logical deductions surrounding the resurrection.
Right, we are remaining completely impartial.
Exactly. This isn't about endorsing a religious viewpoint. It's about exploring the secular records, the psychology of the early movement, and the rigorous arguments presented by scholars and skeptics alike. We are dissecting the anatomy of the claim itself.
Well, let's jump right into the stakes here because they are astronomically high. If you look at a text written by the Apostle Paul, specifically 1 Corinthians 15:3, he essentially writes that if the resurrection didn't physically happen, then the entire Christian faith is completely, to use his word, useless.
Yeah, that's a bold statement.
Right. The religion itself admits that its entire philosophical and moral framework hinges on this single historical event.
Which is incredibly rare for a world religion.
Right.
I mean, if you analyze other major historical religious figures, Buddha, Muhammad, Confucius, the foundational narratives of their movements do not hinge on a physical resurrection.
They just don't.
No. Their followers openly acknowledge that they lived, they taught, they died, and their bodies stayed in the grave. The enduring legacy was supposed to be in their teachings.
Right.
But the earliest followers of Jesus made a fundamentally different, exceptionally radical claim. They staked everything on the assertion that he was publicly crucified, buried, and then physically walked out of a tomb.
And I want to pause on that 1 Corinthians text for a second, because a skeptic might say, well, Paul wrote that decades later. It's easy for legends to grow over 50 or 100 years.
Sure, that's a common assumption.
But historians don't actually view that specific text as a late legend, do they?
No, they don't. And this is where the textual history gets really fascinating. Critical scholars, including secular and atheist historians, have analyzed the structure of 1 Corinthians 15. The verses where Paul lists the people who saw the resurrected Jesus are structured as an early creed. In the original language, it has this rhythmic oral tradition cadence.
Like a chant or a poem to help people memorize it.
Exactly. And based on linguistic analysis and historical dating, scholars widely agree that Paul received this creed incredibly early. We are talking about a finalized statement of belief that dates back to within 3 to 5 years of the actual crucifixion.
Wait, really? 3 to 5 years?
Yeah.
That completely shatters the idea that this was some myth that evolved over centuries, like the legends of Hercules or King Arthur.
Precisely. Myths usually require generations to form, specifically so the original eyewitnesses die off and can't contradict the new fantastical stories. But this creed was circulating in Jerusalem, while the people who supposedly saw it, the people who actively executed him, were still walking the streets.
Which brings us back to the glaring geographical problem. The Jewish and Roman authorities desperately wanted to crush this disruptive movement.
Oh, absolutely.
And the absolute easiest way to do that, the fatal blow to Christianity before it even took a breath, would have been to simply walk over to the tomb, pull out the body, and parade it through the streets of Jerusalem. Ladies and gentlemen, here is the body. Go home.
Right. It's the ultimate trump card.
Yeah.
But they never played it.
Because they couldn't.
Exactly.
Yeah.
The historical consensus from across the spectrum is that the authorities didn't produce a body because they couldn't.
Okay, let's unpack this. So they couldn't produce a corpse. That forces us to look at what they actually did find. They found an empty tomb.
Right.
Now let's look at the specific historical claims about that empty tomb, because if I'm inventing a hoax in the ancient world, I am going to write my story to be as credible and airtight as possible. But the earliest texts claim that the very first people to discover the empty tomb were women.
And to understand why that detail is so explosive, we have to understand the patriarchal legal mechanisms of first-century Judea.
Right, because it was a very different world.
Entirely. In that era, the testimony of women was highly marginalized. If you read first-century rabbinic texts or the historian Josephus, they explicitly state that the testimony of women was generally not admissible in a court of law. They were culturally viewed as unreliable witnesses.
So if you are a group of male disciples sitting around a table trying to invent a hoax to sell to a deeply patriarchal society, this is like the worst possible PR strategy.
Exactly. Historians analyze texts using something called the criterion of embarrassment.
Oh, I've heard of this.
Yeah, it basically says if a historical account includes details that are awkward, culturally damaging, or detrimental to the author's cause, it is highly likely to be true.
Because why would you invent something that hurts your own argument?
Right. If they were making it up, they would have logically written the story so that the respected male leaders like Peter or John were the ones who heroically discovered the empty tomb and brilliantly deduced the resurrection.
You don't deliberately weaken your own fake story. The only logical reason you write that women found the tomb first is if you are stubbornly committed to reporting what actually happened, regardless of the cultural embarrassment.
Precisely. And we also have to look at how the hostile authorities reacted to this empty tomb claim.
Oh, this is fascinating.
They didn't put out a decree saying, ignore the rumors, his body is still rotting in the grave.
Yeah.
Their official response, which is recorded in the historical texts, was to claim that the disciples snuck in and stole the body.
Which is such a massive tactical error on their part.
Yeah, it really is.
I mean, by officially claiming the body was stolen, the enemies of the movement were accidentally confirming the foundational premise. The tomb was empty.
It's like saying, I didn't steal your car, my cousin stole it. You're admitting the car is gone.
Exactly. Both sides completely agreed the body was missing. They just violently disagreed on how it went missing.
It's an implicit admission of the facts on the ground. However, as any good historical investigator will point out, an empty tomb does not automatically equal a supernatural resurrection.
Oh.
A missing corpse is just a missing corpse.
Completely agree. Let's be rational about this. If the body wasn't there and the Romans didn't move it, we have to look at the alternative secular explanations.
Okay, let's go through them.
Let's start with the most obvious one. What if Jesus just didn't die on the cross? People survive crazy trauma. Maybe he passed out from the pain, the Romans mistakenly thought he was dead, and he woke up a few days later in the cool, damp tomb.
It's a common theory, often called the swoon theory. On the surface, if you are detached from the historical realities of the ancient world, it sounds plausible.
Sure.
But when you apply medical science and historical knowledge to what a Roman crucifixion actually entailed,